The world is not fair, and the sooner you accept this brutal truth, the sooner you stop losing silent battles you don't even realize you're fighting. Right now, while you're watching this, someone less intelligent than you, less qualified than you, less experienced than you, is commanding more respect, earning more opportunities, and wielding more influence. Not because they're better, because they understand something you've been ignoring. Power is perceived before it's spoken. Every time you slouch in your chair during a meeting, you're signaling submission. Every time you make yourself smaller to accommodate others' comfort, you're teaching people to overlook you. Every time you cross your arms defensively, fidget nervously, or avoid taking up space, you're broadcasting weakness to everyone around you. And they're reading it. Consciously or unconsciously, they're cataloguing your body language and deciding whether you deserve respect or disregard. Here's the truth nobody wants to admit. Your words matter far less than your physical presence. You can have the most brilliant ideas, the sharpest arguments, the most compelling logic in the world. But if your body communicates insecurity, uncertainty, or submission, people will dismiss everything you say. Not because they're consciously choosing to, because human beings are wired to respond to physical dominance cues that were established thousands of years before language even existed. I am Niccolò Machiavelli. 500 years ago, I walked the marble halls of Renaissance Italy, watching princes rise and fall, observing how power moved through rooms like an invisible current. I noticed something disturbing. The most capable men were often ignored, while less competent men commanded armies simply because they occupied space like they owned it. Physical presence wasn't just about strength. It was about psychological warfare conducted through posture, alignment, and spatial dominance. In this video, I'm going to share 8 ruthless principles of body language, spatial occupation, and physical alignment that force immediate respect without you speaking a single word. This isn't about becoming more likable. This is about becoming psychologically untouchable, about walking into any room and having people unconsciously register you as someone who cannot be dismissed, manipulated, or overlooked. The silent language of power Machiavelli lived in Renaissance Italy, surrounded by courtiers, diplomats, soldiers, and princes who fought for power daily. He watched countless negotiations, observed political theatre, and understood that before anyone opened their mouth, the room had already decided who held power. Physical presence wasn't decoration. It was strategic communication. Human psychology hasn't changed. Your nervous system still processes threat and dominance through ancient mechanisms that predate rational thought. When you walk into a room, people's brains are performing rapid calculations. Is this person a threat or an opportunity? Dominant or submissive? Worth respecting or safe to dismiss? And they're making these assessments based almost entirely on how you carry your body. Most people think confidence is internal, something you feel. That's backwards. Confidence is external. It's projected through your skeleton, your muscle tension, your spatial occupation. Master your physical alignment and the feeling follows. Fail to master it, and no amount of positive thinking will save you from being psychologically dominated by people who understand this game better than you. Now, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I refuse to be physically dismissed by others. 1. The vertical spine. Your skeleton is your first weapon. Let's start with something uncomfortable. When you collapse your spine, round your shoulders forward, and tilt your head down, you're not just showing bad posture. You're performing submission. You're telling every person in your vicinity that you're not a threat, that you can be ignored, that you don't deserve attention or respect. Think about the last time you walked into an important meeting, a social gathering, or a professional environment where you felt uncertain. What did your body do? Did your shoulders round forward? Did your chest collapse inward? Did your head tilt down to avoid eye contact? If you answered yes to any of these, you were broadcasting insecurity to everyone in that room, and they responded accordingly. Here's what happens when you walk around with a collapsed spine. People unconsciously give you less space. They interrupt you more frequently. They question your ideas more aggressively. They dismiss your contributions faster. They're not doing it to be cruel. They're doing it because your body is communicating that you're not worth taking seriously. It's not personal, it's primal. Machiavelli once said, "Men in general judge more from appearances than from reality. All men have eyes, but few have the gift of penetration. Your spine is the most immediate appearance you present. A vertical aligned spine communicates strength, certainty, and psychological dominance. A collapsed spine communicates defeat before you've even begun. Most people walk through life with rounded shoulders and forward head posture, their bodies folded into defensive positions. Warriors, leaders, and psychologically dominant individuals do something different. They elongate their spine as if a string is pulling them upward from the crown of their head. They keep their shoulders back and down, chest slightly lifted, chin parallel to the ground. They make their skeleton a monument to verticality. Same person, different spinal alignment, different level of respect. Let me give you a concrete example. Two people enter a negotiation. The first person sits down, with shoulders rolled forward, spine curved, head tilted down toward their notes. The second person sits with spine vertical, shoulders aligned, head level. Before either person speaks, observers unconsciously perceive the second person as more competent, more confident, more worthy of respect. Research confirms this. Vertical spinal alignment increases perceived dominance by up to 30% in social evaluations. Here's the uncomfortable truth that nobody wants to hear. Your body is lying about you right now. If your default posture is collapsed, people are underestimating you everywhere you go. At work, in relationships, in social situations. Not because you're incompetent, but because your skeleton is telling them you are. Listen to that again. Let that sink in. Your physical alignment is costing you respect, opportunity, and influence every single day. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I stand vertically. I command respect. 2. Spatial expansion. Occupy room. Like you own it. Here's a question most people avoid asking themselves. When you sit down in a meeting, do you make yourself smaller or larger? Do you pull your arms in close, cross your legs tightly, and compress your body into the smallest possible space? Or do you expand, take up room, and occupy the environment around you? If you're making yourself smaller, you're training people to overlook you. Every single time. Think about powerful people you've seen in professional or social environments. Notice how they occupy space. Their arms rest comfortably on armrests or tables. Their legs are positioned with space between them. Their belongings are spread out slightly around them. They don't apologize for the room they take up. They claim it naturally, as if it's their right. Now think about people who get ignored, dismissed or walked over. What does their spatial occupation look like? They pull their arms in tight against their body. They cross their legs defensively. They keep their belongings in a tiny contained area. They physically shrink themselves to avoid inconveniencing others. And what happens? People unconsciously register them as low status, low threat, and unworthy of consideration. Here's what happens when you compress your spatial footprint. You become invisible. Your contributions are forgotten faster. Your ideas are credited to others. Your presence doesn't register in people's memory because your body communicated that you weren't important enough to remember. They're not consciously ignoring you. Your spatial compression told them they could. Machiavelli understood this. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. When you compress your body, you appear small, and people treat you accordingly. It doesn't matter how capable you are internally. External perception is reality. Most people apologize for existing in space. They pull in, shrink down, make themselves convenient for everyone else. Dominant individuals do the opposite. They expand. Not aggressively, not rudely, but naturally. They place their arms wider. They position their legs with comfortable space. They claim the environment around them as their territory. One signals, "I belong here." The other signals, "I'm grateful you're tolerating my presence." One is respected. The other is dismissed. Let me give you a practical scenario. You're sitting at a conference table. The person next to you has their notebook, phone, and coffee spread comfortably in front of them. You've compressed everything into a 6-inch square directly in front of your body. Before anyone speaks, the power dynamic has been established. They own space. You're borrowing it. And everyone at that table unconsciously registers that hierarchy. Here's the brutal truth. Spatial compression is learned helplessness. You've been trained to make yourself smaller, to avoid conflict, to be polite, to not inconvenience others. And the result? You've become someone who's easy to overlook, easy to interrupt, and easy to dismiss. The tragedy is that you're doing it to yourself. Nobody is forcing you to compress. You're choosing submission because it feels safer than claiming what's yours. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I expand into space. I refuse to shrink. 3. The grounded stance. Root yourself or be moved. Let's talk about something most people never consider. Your connection to the ground. Right now, are you standing on both feet with weight evenly distributed? Or are you shifting your weight from foot to foot, leaning on one leg, or standing with feet too close together? If you're constantly shifting, you're communicating instability. And people unconsciously exploit instability. Think about the last time someone challenged you in conversation, questioned your authority, or tested your boundaries. What did your feet do? Did they stay planted firmly on the ground, shoulder width apart, weight distributed evenly? Or did they shuffle, shift weight back and forth, or cross at the ankles in a defensive stance? Your feet told the story of whether you were grounded or vulnerable. Here's what happens when you lack grounding. People unconsciously push harder against you. They test your limits more aggressively. They sense that you can be moved both physically and psychologically. And they're right. Because when your stance is unstable, your entire presence becomes negotiable. When you stand with feet too close together, lean on one leg, or shift your weight constantly, you're creating physical instability. And physical instability translates directly into psychological vulnerability. Your nervous system knows you're off balance. Their nervous system knows it too. and the power dynamic adjusts accordingly. Machiavelli once said, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." Fear isn't about violence, it's about unmovability. When people sense they cannot push you, cannot move you, cannot destabilize you, they treat you with respect, born from recognition that you're a fixed point in their environment. Most people stand like they're ready to flee, weight shifted back, feet positioned for escape. Leaders, warriors, and psychologically dominant individuals do something different. They plant both feet shoulder-width apart, distribute weight evenly across both legs, and root themselves into the ground beneath them. They become unmovable. One stance says, "I might leave at any moment." The other says, "I'm not going anywhere unless I choose to." One invites challenge. The other commands respect. Let me give you a specific example. Two people are having a difficult conversation. The first person stands with feet close together, weight shifting from left to right, unconsciously preparing to retreat. The second person stands with feet shoulder-width apart, weight evenly distributed, completely still. Before either person raises their voice, the psychological hierarchy is established. The first person can be pushed, the second cannot. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If you're physically easy to move, you're psychologically easy to dominate. Your body is the foundation of your psychological boundaries. When that foundation is unstable, everything built on top of it collapses under pressure. Listen to that again. Let that sink in. Your unstable stance is giving people permission to push you around. Not because they're aggressive, but because you're communicating that pushing works. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I am rooted. I cannot be moved. 4. The slow movement, speed signals. Insecurity. Here's something that will change how you see movement forever. Fast, jerky, reactive movements communicate anxiety, insecurity, and low status. Slow, deliberate, controlled movements communicate power, certainty, and dominance. Ask yourself right now, when someone asks you a question, do you snap your head toward them immediately? When you need something, do you rush to get it? When you're nervous, do your hands move faster, gesturing more frantically, trying to fill space with motion? If you answered yes, you're broadcasting insecurity with every movement. Think about powerful people you've observed. Notice their tempo. They don't rush. They don't react instantly. When they turn their head, it's smooth and deliberate. When they reach for something, the movement is controlled. When they gesture, it's economical and purposeful. They move like they have all the time in the world, because psychologically they do. They're not performing for anyone's timeline but their own. Now think about people who are constantly dismissed or overlooked. What does their movement look like? Quick, reactive, nervous. Their hands flutter. Their head snaps around. Their body is in constant motion, trying desperately to prove their engagement, their enthusiasm, their worthiness of attention. And what happens? People unconsciously categorize them as anxious and low status. Here's what happens when you move quickly and reactively. People sense your nervousness. They unconsciously perceive you as someone who can be pressured, rushed, and controlled. Your fast movements tell them that you're responding to external demands rather than internal authority. And they treat you accordingly. When you react instantly to questions, jump up quickly when asked, or move your hands frantically when speaking, you're signaling that you're operating under someone else's control. You're showing that external stimuli dictate your behavior. That's the opposite of dominance. That's submission in motion. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. The wise man does at once what the fool does finally. But wisdom isn't speed. Wisdom is knowing when to move and moving with intention. Fools rush. The wise move deliberately. Most people rush through life, their movements betraying internal chaos and external pressure. Dominant individuals move differently. They slow down, not artificially, not performatively, but naturally. They turn their heads smoothly when addressed. They reach for objects with controlled motion. They gesture economically. They own their tempo. One movement pattern says, "I'm anxious and reactive." The other says, "I move when I decide to move." One invites pressure. The other commands respect. Let me give you a concrete scenario. You're in a professional meeting. Someone asks you a direct question. The first person's head snaps toward the speaker. Their hands immediately start gesturing. Their body leans forward urgently. The second person slowly turns their head, makes eye contact deliberately, and pauses before responding. Before either person speaks, observers have already assessed who's in control. The first person is reactive. The second is authoritative. Here's the brutal truth. Your speed is undermining you. Every rushed movement, every reactive gesture, every anxious fidget is telling people that you're operating under stress, under pressure, under someone else's dominance. And they're using that information against you whether they realize it or not. The tragedy is that you think speed demonstrates enthusiasm or engagement. It doesn't. It demonstrates anxiety. And anxiety is exploitable. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I control my tempo. I move with intention. 5. The direct gaze. Your eyes are dominance weapons. Let's address something most people are terrified of. Eye contact. Right now, when you're talking to someone, do you hold their gaze steadily? Or do your eyes dart away, look down, scan the room nervously, or focus on objects rather than people? If you're breaking eye contact first, you're submitting. Every single time. Think about the last conversation where you felt uncomfortable or challenged. What did your eyes do? Did they stay locked on the other person's gaze? Or did they escape downward, sideways, or toward something safer? Your eyes told the truth about your internal state, and the other person registered it immediately. Here's what happens when you break eye contact first. You signal submission. You communicate that the other person's gaze is more powerful than yours, that their psychological presence is stronger, that they win the silent dominance contest happening beneath the conversation. And once they register that victory, the power dynamic shifts permanently. When you look away first, look down when challenged, or avoid eye contact entirely, you're performing the same submission gesture that animals use to signal defeat. It's primal, it's instinctive, and it's costing you respect in every interaction. Machiavelli once wrote, "Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see but few can feel." Your eyes are the most direct channel of psychological communication you possess. When you control your gaze, you control perception. When you surrender your gaze, you surrender power. Most people avoid extended eye contact because it feels vulnerable, aggressive, or uncomfortable. Dominant individuals do something different. They hold eye contact steadily, not staring aggressively, but maintaining a calm, direct gaze that communicates, "I see you. I'm not intimidated by you, and I'm not looking away first." One eye pattern says, "You have more power than me." The other says, "We're meeting as equals and I'm not backing down." One invites domination. The other commands respect. Let me give you a practical example. Two people are negotiating a deal. The first person makes a proposal, then immediately looks down at their notes, breaking eye contact. The second person makes their proposal while maintaining steady eye contact, only breaking to gesture or emphasize a point, but always returning to direct gaze. Before terms are even discussed, the psychological hierarchy is established. The first person is uncertain. The second is unwavering. Here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to hear. Your inability to hold eye contact is broadcasting insecurity to everyone you meet. At job interviews, on dates, in negotiations, during conflicts. You're telling people through your eyes that you lack confidence in your own presence. Listen to that again. Let that sink in. Every time you look away first, you're teaching people that they can psychologically dominate you. And they do. And here's where it gets worse. You probably don't even realize how often you're doing it. Breaking eye contact has become so habitual that you're surrendering power unconsciously dozens of times per day. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I hold my gaze. I refuse to look away first. 6. The chin position. Elevation signals dominance. Here's a subtle detail that has massive psychological impact. The position of your chin. Right now, is your chin parallel to the ground, tilted slightly upward, or pointing downward? If your chin is pointing down, you're communicating submission, shame, and low status. And people are treating you accordingly. Think about moments when you felt uncertain, embarrassed, or inferior. What did your chin do? It tilted down. Your eyes probably followed, looking at the ground or your phone, rather than engaging with the environment. Your body was performing a submission ritual, and everyone around you unconsciously registered it. Here's what happens when your chin tilts downward. People perceive you as ashamed, uncertain, or deferent. They unconsciously assume your lower status. They interrupt you more. They dismiss your ideas faster. They take up more space around you. Not because they're consciously choosing to dominate you, but because your body language is inviting it. When you walk with your chin pointed down, sit with your head tilted forward, or habitually look at the ground instead of ahead, you're broadcasting vulnerability. You're telling everyone in your environment that you're not a threat, that you can be ignored, that you don't deserve the same consideration as people who carry their heads differently. Machiavelli understood that perception is reality in power dynamics. Your chin position is one of the most visible signals of your psychological state. A chin parallel to the ground or slightly elevated communicates confidence, awareness, and dominance. A downward tilted chin communicates defeat. Most people walk through life with their chin pointed down, especially when looking at phones, reading, or trying to avoid attention. Leaders and psychologically dominant individuals keep their chin level or slightly elevated. They scan the horizon, not the ground. They engage with the environment at eye level, not from a submissive downward angle. One chin position says, "I'm not sure I belong here." The other says, "This is my environment and I'm surveying it." One invites dismissal. The other commands attention. Let me give you a specific scenario. Two people enter a room full of strangers. The first person walks in with chin tilted down, eyes on the floor, navigating carefully to avoid bumping into people. The second person walks in with chin parallel to the ground, eyes scanning the room at eye level, moving with purpose. Before either person introduces themselves, observers have already decided who's worth approaching. The first person is forgettable. The second is magnetic. Here's the brutal truth. Your downward chin is making you invisible. In professional environments, in social situations, in dating contexts, you're physically positioning yourself below everyone else, and they're unconsciously accepting that hierarchy as accurate. The tragedy is that you probably learned this as a politeness strategy. Look down to be humble. Avoid appearing arrogant or aggressive. The result? You've trained yourself into permanent submission posture. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I lift my chin. I face the world directly. 7. The stillness principle, nervous movement signals. Weakness. Let's talk about something that betrays more people than they realize. Unnecessary movement. Right now, are you completely still when standing or sitting? Or are you fidgeting, shifting weight, adjusting clothing, touching your face, or finding small movements to occupy nervous energy? If you can't be still, you're communicating internal chaos. And chaos is exploitable. Ask yourself this. When you're in an important conversation or tense situation, what does your body do? Do you touch your face, adjust your hair, pick at your fingers, shift in your chair, bounce your leg, cross and uncross your arms? Every single one of these movements is broadcasting anxiety to everyone watching. Think about people you've seen who command immediate respect when they enter a room. Notice their stillness. They stand without fidgeting. They sit without constant adjustment. Their hands rest calmly. Their legs stay planted. They occupy space with calm, controlled presence. They don't need to move because they're not trying to discharge nervous energy. They're simply present. Now think about people who are constantly interrupted, dismissed, or not taken seriously. What does their body do? Constant small movements, fidgeting, adjusting, touching. Their body is never at rest because their nervous system is broadcasting distress signals continuously, and everyone around them unconsciously perceives vulnerability. Here's what happens when you fidget constantly. People sense your discomfort. They unconsciously categorize you as anxious, uncertain, and low status. Your nervous movements tell them that you're not in control of yourself, which means they certainly shouldn't put you in control of anything important. Your fidgeting is costing you opportunities you don't even know you're losing. When you touch your face during negotiations, bounce your leg during presentations, or constantly adjust your clothing in social situations, you're signaling internal distress. You're showing that your nervous system is overwhelmed. And people are using that information to dominate you psychologically. Machiavelli once observed, "Men are driven more by illusion than reason." Your fidgeting creates the illusion of incompetence, regardless of your actual capabilities. Stillness creates the illusion of mastery. And in power dynamics, illusion often matters more than reality. Most people fill every moment with small, unnecessary movements because stillness feels uncomfortable, exposed, or vulnerable. Dominant individuals do the opposite. They practice stillness. Not rigid, frozen posture, but calm, controlled presence. They move only when movement serves a purpose. One movement pattern says, "I'm uncomfortable in my own body." The other says, "I'm completely at ease with my physical presence." One invites questioning. The other commands trust. Let me give you a concrete example. Two people are being interviewed for a leadership position. The first person constantly adjusts their clothing, touches their hair, shifts in their seat, and gestures nervously. The second person sits still, moves only to emphasize important points, and maintains calm physical presence. Before either person answers a difficult question, the interviewers have already formed impressions. The first person seems uncertain. The second seems composed under pressure. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your nervous movements are telling everyone that you're not in control. Not in control of your body. Not in control of your emotions. Not in control of situations. And if you can't control yourself, why would anyone trust you to control anything else? Listen to that again. Let that sink in. Every fidget, every unnecessary adjustment, every nervous touch is broadcasting to the world that you're overwhelmed. And people are responding by taking control away from you. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I am still. I am in control. 8. The shoulders back position. Chest forward is confidence. Forward, here's the final principle, and it's the one that ties everything together. Your shoulder position. Right now, are your shoulders pulled back and down, opening your chest? Or are they rounded forward, collapsing your upper body into a protective, defensive position? If your shoulders are rounded forward, you're performing submission. Consciously or unconsciously, you're making yourself smaller, less threatening, and less worthy of respect. Think about every moment of your day. When you're sitting at your desk, when you're standing in a meeting, when you're walking down the street, when you're talking to someone important, what are your shoulders doing? Are they pulled back, opening your chest to the world? Or are they curled forward, protecting your heart space like you're expecting an attack? Here's what happens when you round your shoulders forward. You compress your breathing, which increases anxiety. You appear smaller, which decreases perceived status. You signal vulnerability, which invites exploitation. Your rounded shoulders are creating a negative feedback loop, where your posture increases your anxiety. Your anxiety worsens your posture, and the cycle spirals downward, while everyone around you unconsciously registers your submission. When you walk around with shoulders collapsed forward and chest caved inward, you're performing the same protective posture that humans use when anticipating threat or expecting rejection. You're telling everyone in your environment, I'm not safe, I'm not confident, and I don't expect to be treated well. And they respond accordingly. Machiavelli would remind us, the prince who relies upon their words without having otherwise provided for security is ruined. Your words mean nothing if your body is contradicting them. You can speak with confidence, present brilliant ideas, and articulate compelling arguments. But if your shoulders are rounded forward and your chest is collapsed, people unconsciously dismiss everything you say. Most people spend entire lives with rounded shoulders, especially in modern environments where screens pull bodies forward into collapsed postures. Leaders, athletes, and psychologically dominant individuals do something different. They pull their shoulders back and down, opening their chest, creating physical expansion. They face the world with their heart space exposed because they're not expecting to be attacked. One shoulder position says, I'm protecting myself from anticipated harm. The other says, I'm open and confident in my ability to handle whatever comes. One invites caution and dismissal. The other commands respect and engagement. Let me give you a practical scenario. Two people are giving presentations. The first person stands with shoulders rounded forward, chest collapsed, arms held close to body. The second person stands with shoulders pulled back, chest slightly lifted, arms gesturing away from the body with expansion. Before either person finishes their introduction, the audience has already decided who's more credible. The first person appears uncertain. The second appears authoritative. Here's the brutal truth that nobody wants to face. Your rounded shoulders are sabotaging you everywhere you go. In job interviews, you appear less competent. In social situations, you're approached less frequently. In dating contexts, you're perceived as less attractive. In professional environments, you're taken less seriously. Not because of who you are, but because of how you're carrying your body. The tragedy is that you learned to round your shoulders as a protection mechanism. Maybe from criticism, maybe from rejection, maybe from trying to avoid attention. The result? You've trained your body into permanent submission posture that's now broadcasting vulnerability to everyone you meet. And here's where it gets worse. This posture is now comfortable to you. Pulling your shoulders back feels strange, artificial, even arrogant. Your nervous system has adapted to submission as the default. Changing it requires conscious, sustained effort. And most people never do it. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I open my chest to the world. I refuse to collapse. Physical dominance is non-negotiable. If you don't master the dark psychology of physical dominance, someone who understands it better will control every room you enter. This isn't about becoming more likable. This isn't about making friends. This is about psychological warfare happening in every interaction, every meeting, every social situation you navigate. And right now, if you're walking around with collapsed posture, breaking eye contact first, fidgeting nervously, and compressing your spatial footprint, you're losing battles you don't even know you're fighting. The world doesn't reward good intentions. It doesn't reward intelligence or competence. It rewards perceived dominance. And perceived dominance is communicated through your body before you speak a single word. Your spine, your spatial occupation, your grounding, your movement tempo, your gaze, your chin, your stillness, your shoulders. Each of these elements is broadcasting information about your psychological state, your status, your worthiness of respect. And people are responding to these signals unconsciously every moment of every day. Stop collapsing your spine. Stop making yourself smaller to accommodate others' comfort. Stop shifting your weight nervously. Stop moving with anxious speed. Stop breaking eye contact first. Stop pointing your chin downward. Stop fidgeting constantly. Stop rounding your shoulders forward. Every single one of these behaviors is teaching people that you can be dismissed, overlooked and dominated. Start elongating your spine like a monument to verticality. Start expanding into space like you own it. Start rooting yourself into the ground like you cannot be moved. Start moving with deliberate, controlled tempo. Start holding your gaze until others look away. Start lifting your chin to face the world directly. Start practicing stillness that communicates complete self-control. Start pulling your shoulders back and opening your chest to the environment. Machiavelli wasn't telling you to be cruel. He was telling you to be aware. To understand that power operates through perception, and perception is shaped by physical presence. The world is full of people who are less capable than you, less intelligent than you, less qualified than you, but they're getting opportunities you deserve because they understand body language as psychological warfare, and you've been treating it as accidental arrangement. The world will never reward collapsed posture. It will mock, dismiss, and overlook the person who makes themselves small. But those who stand vertically, occupy space confidently, move deliberately, hold their gaze steadily, and present their body as a weapon of psychological dominance will command respect whether people want to give it or not. This isn't about their choice. This is about triggering ancient dominance recognition systems that exist below conscious awareness. Your body is the foundation of every interaction you have. If that foundation communicates submission, everything built on top of it collapses. If that foundation communicates dominance, everything you say and do is amplified by the physical authority you project. If this video opened your eyes to the silent battles you've been losing, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to understand this ruthless truth. And subscribe to this channel, because we're going to keep having these real conversations about power that nobody else wants to have. Outthink the crowd. Stand unshaken. Dominate physically before speaking verbally. Now I want you to drop this final affirmation in the comments. I am physically untouchable. I command respect through presence. Now go be that person. The world is waiting for you to stop collapsing and start dominating.